They say one piece of evidence can destroy an empire, and for Kirk Frost, that moment has finally arrived. After years of rumors, betrayals, and carefully hidden secrets, Jasmine has come back with something far more dangerous than words: receipts. And not just any receipts, the kind that don't lie, don't fade, and don't leave room for excuses. What she's uncovered threatens to blow Kirk's entire world apart. It's proof that goes deeper than infidelity transactions, hidden messages, and private deals that show a side of him no one has ever seen. The man who once portrayed himself as a loyal husband and savvy businessman is about to face the ultimate exposure when Jasmine drops the evidence. Jaws drop, alliances crumble, and Kirk's carefully built career teeters on the edge of collapse. And once the truth is out, there's no going back. The tension had been simmering for months, but no one, not even Kirk Frost himself, saw the bombshell coming. To the public, Kirk was still the businessman, the family man, the reality TV veteran who had weathered every storm and still managed to keep his career intact. He had built an empire with Rashida by his side, made millions through music, endorsements, and TV, and even turned past scandals into stepping stones for more fame. But behind the scenes, things weren't as solid as they seemed. Rumors had begun swirling again, whispers of shady deals, late-night meetings, and secret money changing hands. Kirk brushed it off like he always did, confident that no one could prove anything. He'd gotten away with worse before. This time, he thought, would be no different. What he didn't know was that Jasmine was watching, and she was done staying silent for years. Jasmine had been painted as the villain, the other woman, the homewrecker. The scandal Kirk wished the world would forget. She had been dragged by fans, humiliated on camera, and labeled everything from desperate to delusional. But what no one knew was that Jasmine had something powerful proof. And after everything Kirk had done, she had decided it was time to use it. It started with a folder. Inside were screenshots of text messages spanning months, conversations between Kirk and a business associate about offshore accounts, money laundering, and payouts that weren't exactly legal. Then came the photos, images of Kirk in secret meetings with people Rashida didn't know, at places he never mentioned, doing deals he swore didn't exist. And finally, there were the bank records, wire transfers from shell companies, hush payments to people who were never supposed to talk, and even receipts for luxury gifts purchased with business funds. It wasn't just about cheating anymore. This was career-ending material. If this evidence reached the public, Kirk wouldn't just lose Rashida, he could lose everything. Jasmine sat on the evidence for weeks, unsure if she should release it. Part of her wanted revenge for the years of disrespect and lies. Another part wanted justice, not just for herself, but for Rashida, for the fans who had been manipulated, and for the truth. But one thing was certain: the time had come. The opportunity presented itself when filming began for a new Love and Hip Hop Atlanta reunion special. The producers, hungry for drama and ratings, had invited Jasmine back for the first time in 2 seasons. They expected a few tense words. Maybe a confrontation. But they had no idea what she was planning. The reunion was already intense before Jasmine even stepped on stage. Rashida had spoken openly about rebuilding her life. Kirk had apologized publicly for past mistakes. And the audience seemed ready to believe the narrative of redemption. But then, the air shifted. Jasmine walked in with a calm, almost icy demeanor, and in her hands was a manila envelope. "Before we get started," she said, stopping the conversation mid-sentence, "think everyone, especially Rashida, deserves to see the truth." The room fell silent. Kirk's face instantly changed. His confident smile vanished, replaced by a look of panic. He knew that tone. He had spent years dreading the day Jasmine might finally come for him. And now it was happening. "What are you talking about?" Kirk asked, his voice cracking slightly. "This," Jasmine said, holding up the envelope, "is everything you've been hiding. All the lies, all the money, all the proof that your little perfect image is built on corruption." Gasps filled the room. Even Rashida looked confused. "What proof?" she asked, her voice trembling. Without another word, Jasmine walked to the center of the stage and placed the envelope on the table in front of Mona, the host. Inside was a collection of printed screenshots, photocopied bank records, and a USB drive. Mona opened it carefully, scanning the pages before her eyes widened. "Jasmine," Mona whispered, This is serious. It's real," Jasmine said calmly. "Every text, every transfer, every dirty deal. Kirk's been hiding money, lying about business ventures, and using his company to cover up things you don't even want to know about." The camera zoomed in on Kirk. Sweat was forming on his forehead. He tried to laugh it off, but his voice betrayed him. "This is ridiculous. She's just trying to ruin me." "Ruin you?" Jasmine shot back. "No, Kirk, you did that all by yourself." The crowd erupted. Cast members whispered to each other in shock. Some covered their mouths in disbelief. Others stared at Rashida, waiting for her reaction. But she was frozen, her mind racing as she processed every word. "This isn't just a scandal," Mona said, flipping through the pages. "If this is legit, it could mean legal trouble. This could end careers." Jasmine folded her arms. "Exactly. And that's why I kept it. Because Kirk has been walking around acting untouchable while lying to everyone. Especially Rashida. And the world deserves to know." Kirk's mask cracked completely. "You don't know what you're talking about," he hissed. "Half of that stuff is fake." "Then explain it," Jasmine challenged. "Explain the payments. Explain the fake companies. Explain the money that disappeared from accounts Rashida doesn't even know exist." For the first time, Kirk was speechless. He had no explanation, no clever excuse, no rehearsed speech. The truth was right there in black and white, and there was no way to spin it. Rashida finally spoke. "Is it true?" she asked softly, her eyes locked on Kirk. "Did you do all this?" Kirk looked down at the table, unable to meet her gaze. I can explain." "No," she said, standing up. "I don't want explanations. I want the truth." But deep down, Rashida already knew the answer. And as the cameras rolled and the evidence piled up, she realized something she had tried to avoid for years. This wasn't just a broken marriage anymore. This was betrayal on a level she couldn't forgive. The room felt like it had stopped breathing. Cameras zoomed in on every shocked expression, every subtle movement. Kirk sat frozen, his lips parted, but no words coming out. Jasmine stood calmly, her arms folded, satisfied that the truth, after years of lies and manipulation, was finally in the open. And Rashida? She just stared at the documents scattered across the table. Each page another stab in the heart. For years, she had believed Kirk when he said the past was behind them. She believed him when he promised there were no more secrets, no more lies. But now, in front of millions, those promises meant nothing. The screenshots, the transactions, the evidence, they told a completely different story. And it wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was fraud. It was theft. It was corruption. "Rashida," Jasmine said, breaking the silence, "I didn't do this to embarrass you. I did it because you deserve to know who you've really been married to." Rashida swallowed hard, blinking back tears. "All these years. And you were still lying, babe? It's not what you think," Kirk finally said, his voice trembling. "Those transactions, they're complicated. Business is complicated. You know how this industry works. Complicated." Rashida repeated, her voice rising. "You were hiding money. You were lying to investors. You were transferring money into accounts I didn't even know existed. That's not complicated. That's calculated." The crowd murmured in agreement. Even the usually composed Mona was struggling to maintain control of the set. "Kirk," she said carefully, "these documents, if real, are extremely serious. We're talking potential legal issues here. This isn't just a scandal." Kirk rubbed his face with both hands, his mask of confidence long gone. "This is all out of context," he insisted. "It's not what it looks like." Jasmine wasn't having it. "Then tell everyone why you were sending $50,000 to an offshore account under a fake company name. Tell them why you were paying people hush money. Tell them why you were funneling cash through a shell business registered under your cousin's name." Kirk opened his mouth, then closed it again. No explanation. No clever comeback, nothing. "This isn't about me anymore," Rashida said, her voice shaking but strong. "It's about what you've done. And it's about how you've humiliated me again." She stood up slowly and deliberately and walked toward Jasmine. For the first time in years, the two women stood face to face without screaming, without chaos, just a shared understanding. They had both been manipulated, both been lied to, and in this moment, they were united by the truth. "Thank you," Rashida said quietly. Jasmine nodded. "You deserved better." The entire studio erupted in whispers. Even the audience could feel the shift in energy. This wasn't the same Rashida who once defended Kirk through every scandal. This was a woman done with excuses, a woman ready to reclaim her power. A woman ready to reclaim her power. As the reunion filming ended for the night, chaos followed Kirk off stage. His phone buzzed nonstop calls from his lawyer, his business partners, and even the network. Rumors were already circulating that he could be facing an internal investigation. Sponsors were threatening to pull out of deals. One business associate even demanded an emergency meeting, furious over the leaked transactions. Back at home, Rashida sat in silence at the edge of her bed. She stared at the city lights flickering outside the window, her mind racing. Her life, everything she had built, was unraveling because of choices she hadn't made. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from her manager. "We need to talk. This could affect all of our brands." She sighed. Of course it could. Kirk's lies weren't just personal, they were professional. Every deal, every endorsement, every brand they had built together could collapse under the weight of this scandal. Later that night, Kirk walked into the bedroom. He looked exhausted, almost defeated. "We need to talk," he said quietly. Rashida didn't even look at him. "Talk about what?" "More lies." "Please," he said, stepping closer. "I need you to hear me out." "Why?" she snapped, finally meeting his eyes. "So you can feed me another excuse. Tell me it's not what it looks like." "Because, Kirk, it is what it looks like. It's betrayal again. Only this time, it's worse." "It was business," he tried to explain. "I had to make moves. I had to protect us." "Protect us." She laughed bitterly. "You were protecting yourself. You were hiding money from me, from investors, from everyone. You lied about our finances. You lied about who you are, and now look where we are." Kirk reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "I made mistakes," he whispered. "But I can fix this." "No, you can't," she said coldly. "You can't fix this because this isn't a mistake. It's who you are." The words cut deeper than anything she had ever said before. Kirk's face crumpled, and for the first time, he realized the damage was irreversible. The following days were even worse. Media outlets picked up Jasmine's evidence and ran with it. Headlines screamed about potential lawsuits, IRS investigations, and criminal charges. Investors backed out of partnerships. One of Kirk's biggest endorsement deals was terminated overnight. The empire he had built on lies was collapsing brick by brick. Meanwhile, Jasmine's evidence was now in the hands of lawyers, and not just hers. Rashida's legal team had launched an internal audit of every company they owned. Kirk's name was slowly being scrubbed from contracts and removed from brand deals. Every financial decision was under review, and in private, Rashida wrestled with the decision she knew was coming. Part of her still clung to the years they had spent together, the family they had built, the memories they shared. But another part, the stronger part, knew that staying would mean compromising everything. She stood for it by the end of the week. She had made her choice. She called her lawyer and asked for the paperwork. The process wouldn't be easy. It would be public, messy, and painful. But it was necessary. The man she once believed in had not only broken her heart, he had jeopardized her legacy. And that was something she would never forgive. The days that followed were nothing short of chaos. Kirk's world, once polished and untouchable, was crumbling in real time. Every hour brought a new headline, a new revelation, a new problem. Banks were calling. The IRS had officially launched an inquiry into his businesses. Partners he had known for years refused to return his calls. And everywhere he turned, cameras followed. hungry for the fall of a man who once seemed untouchable. For Rashida, the silence at home was louder than any screaming match. She had kicked Kirk out of the house temporarily while she figured things out, but deep down, she knew there was nothing left to figure out. The man she once loved wasn't just a cheater. He was a liar, a manipulator, and now, potentially, a criminal. She spent her days meeting with lawyers, accountants, and brand managers, going through every detail of their finances with a fine-tooth comb. Every page revealed something worse than the last: hidden accounts, unauthorized withdrawals, questionable partnerships. It was almost like she didn't even know the man she had been married to for so many years. The hardest part wasn't the money or the lies. It was the betrayal of trust. Kirk hadn't just betrayed her as a wife. He had betrayed her as a business partner. The brand they built together, the empire they created side by side, it was now at risk because of his greed and arrogance. One afternoon, while going through financial documents with her attorney, Rashida came across something that stopped her cold. It was a transfer of $250,000 to a company she had never heard of. The recipient, a woman's name, a woman she recognized immediately. It was Jasmine. Her attorney's voice snapped her back to reality. "Do you know this person?" he asked. Rashida nodded slowly. "I know exactly who she is." The realization made everything worse. Kirk hadn't just cheated with Jasmine. He had funneled business money, their money, to support her. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was theft. That evening, Rashida met with Yandi and Carly, two of her closest friends, for dinner. The cameras weren't rolling this time. "This was personal, girl. You look exhausted," Yandi said as soon as she sat down. "I feel exhausted," Rashida admitted. "Every day I find out something new, and every time it's worse than I thought." Carly leaned forward. "You're really going to go through with it, aren't you?" "Divorce." Rashida sighed. "I don't have a choice. He didn't just betray me. He endangered everything we built. And now he's trying to drag me down with him." "You don't owe him anything," Yandi said firmly. "Not loyalty. Not forgiveness. Nothing." Rashida nodded, but deep down, it still hurt. No matter how strong she appeared, part of her still grieved the life she thought she had. The family. The partnership. The dream. It was gone now, replaced by legal documents and cold, hard facts. Meanwhile, Kirk was spiraling. He was no longer welcome in the industry spaces that once celebrated him. Former friends avoided him. Endorsements pulled out one by one. And with the IRS investigation looming, the possibility of criminal charges was very real. He tried reaching out to Rashida, dozens of calls, countless messages, but she ignored them all. There was nothing left to say. He had said everything already, and none of it was true. One night, desperate, he showed up at the house unannounced. Rashida considered not opening the door, but part of her wanted to hear what he had to say. She needed closure. "Please," he said as soon as she opened the door. "Just give me 5 minutes." 5 minutes, she said coldly. "Then you leave." Kirk stepped inside looking smaller than she'd ever seen him. "I know you hate me," he began, "and I deserve that. But please believe me when I say I never meant for any of this to happen." "You never meant for it to happen?" Rashida repeated, her voice shaking with anger. "You didn't mean to cheat. You didn't mean to lie. You didn't mean to steal money from our company and give it to her?" Kirk's head dropped. "I made mistakes." "No," she said firmly. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is saying something you don't mean in an argument. What you did wasn't a mistake. It was a series of choices. And every single one of them was selfish." Tears filled Kirk's eyes. "I lost everything," he said quietly. "My career, my name, my family." "You didn't lose them," Rashida said. "You threw them away." There was a long silence before Kirk spoke again. "Is there any chance at all, that we can fix this?" Rashida's answer was immediate. No. That single word hit Kirk harder than anything else. There was no screaming, no arguing, no dramatic confrontation. Just cold, undeniable finality. "I'm filing for divorce," she continued. "And I'm dissolving every business we built together. From this point forward, you and I are nothing." Kirk nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I understand." "Good," she said, walking toward the door. "Now leave." As Kirk walked out of the house, the door closed behind him, and with it, so did a chapter of Rashida's life. For the first time in years, she felt free. It wasn't the kind of freedom that came with happiness. It was the kind that came with peace, the peace of knowing she would never let someone break her like this again. The next morning, Rashida met with her lawyers and signed the initial paperwork to end both their marriage and their business partnership. It was a long road ahead, filled with legal battles, financial disputes, and public scrutiny. But she wasn't scared. She had faced worse and survived. This time, she wasn't just surviving, she was rising. And as news of the divorce broke online, fans around the world rallied behind her. They weren't calling her a victim anymore. They were calling her what she truly was, a survivor, a queen, a woman who refused to be defined by someone else's betrayal. The news cycle was relentless. Kirk's name, once synonymous with music and entrepreneurship, was now tied to scandal and disgrace. His empire was dissolving piece by piece, and this time, there was no coming back. Rashida, meanwhile, was stepping into a new chapter of her life. The woman who once stood silently by her husband's side was now front and center, speaking for herself and building something new from the ruins he left behind. But healing wasn't easy. Even as the legal paperwork moved forward and the world praised her strength, the pain still sat heavy in her chest. The pain still sat heavy in her chest. Some nights she lay awake replaying every lie, every betrayal, every moment she had chosen to believe in someone who didn't deserve her trust. It wasn't just heartbreak she felt, it was humiliation. How could she, a woman as strong and smart as she was, have missed the signs? How could she have let him betray her over and over again? But then she reminded herself it wasn't weakness that kept her there. It was love. And love, no matter how powerful, isn't an excuse to keep tolerating disrespect. One afternoon, Rashida sat down for an exclusive interview, her first public statement since the divorce news broke. The cameras rolled and the world waited to hear her side of the story. "I won't lie," she began. "This has been the most painful chapter of my life, but it's also been the most freeing. I gave everything I had to someone who didn't value it. And now, I'm giving everything I have to myself." The interviewer asked if she hated Kirk for what he did. "No," Rashida answered calmly. "I don't hate him. Hate means I still care. What I feel is nothing, and that's the most powerful feeling of all." The interview went viral within hours. Fans flooded social media with messages of support. Women shared their own stories of betrayal, calling Rashida's journey inspiring, empowering, and real. She had unknowingly become a symbol, not just of strength, but of rebirth. Kirk, on the other hand, was spiraling. With his finances frozen and his reputation destroyed, he was struggling to stay afloat. Once powerful business partners refused to return his calls. Opportunities vanished. And when the IRS officially opened a criminal case into the shell companies linked to his name, it felt like the final nail in the coffin. Still, he couldn't stop thinking about Rashida. He watched clips of her interviews, scrolled through her social media, and saw the empire she was now building without him. It hurt, but deep down, he knew he had done this to himself. One evening, he showed up at a Love and Hip Hop filming location unannounced. The producers didn't plan for it. Rashida certainly didn't. But when she saw him standing there, looking lost and broken, she didn't feel anger, just closure. "Why are you here?" she asked, her tone steady. "I needed to see you," Kirk said. "I needed to say I'm sorry not to win you back, okay? But because I finally understand what I lost." Rashida crossed her arms. "And what exactly did you lose?" "Everything," he whispered. "You, my family, my reputation, my name. Everything I built means nothing without you." There was a time when those words would have melted her heart, but not anymore. "You didn't lose me," she said calmly. "You threw me away, and now you have to live with that." Kirk's eyes welled up with tears. "I know I can't fix this. I know you'll never forgive me, but I hope one day you'll remember me as more than my mistakes. I don't hate you, Kirk, she said softly, but I'll never look at you the same way again. With that, she turned and walked away. And for the first time, Kirk didn't chase her. He just stood there watching the woman he had betrayed choose herself over him. As the weeks passed, Rashida's life continued to evolve. She launched a new business venture, one entirely separate from anything she had built with Kirk. She signed new deals, collaborated with powerful women in the industry, and started a foundation to support women recovering from financial abuse and betrayal. Every step was a declaration. I am more than what happened to me. But even as she rebuilt, there were reminders of the past. One day, her lawyer called with unexpected news. Jasmine had filed a lawsuit against Kirk, claiming he had promised her financial compensation for her silence. The case brought even more attention to the scandal and ensured that Kirk's legal troubles weren't going away anytime soon. For Rashida, though, it was no longer her problem. She wasn't his wife. She wasn't his business partner. She wasn't his defender. She was free. On the anniversary of the day she filed for divorce, she hosted a private dinner with her closest friends. They toasted 2 new beginnings, to strength and to freedom. Yandi raised her glass and said, "Here's to Rashida, the woman who lost everything and gained more than she ever imagined." Everyone cheered. And for the first time in years, Rashida's laughter was genuine. She wasn't laughing to hide the pain. She was laughing because she had truly moved on Kirk. Meanwhile, watch the event from a distance, not physically, but on social media. Through the filtered lens of a life that no longer included him. He had once been the center of her world. Now, he was just a footnote in her story, and deep down, he knew the truth. Jasmine hadn't just dropped a receipt that ended his career. She had sparked a chain reaction that ended his entire identity. The final chapter of this saga didn't come with fireworks. There was no screaming match, no courtroom showdown, no explosive finale. Instead, it arrived quietly, like the last page of a book you never thought you'd finish. Months had passed since Jasmine dropped the evidence that destroyed Kirk's career. The world had moved on, and so had Rashida. What once felt like the end of everything had turned into a new beginning. A chapter where she was no longer defined by someone else's mistakes. She was free. And for the first time in a long time, she was happy. Her days were full again, but not the exhausting, draining kind of full. They were full of purpose. She was expanding her fashion empire, launching a mentorship program for young women in business, and preparing to release a memoir that chronicled her journey from betrayal to empowerment. Every project she touched turned to gold. Not because she was trying to prove something, but because she finally believed in herself. And the public believed in her too. Fans who once pitied her now admired her. Industry insiders who once underestimated her now respected her. She was no longer just Kirk Frost's wife. She was Rashida, a brand, a businesswoman, a survivor, and a powerhouse in her own right. But while Rashida's star continued to rise, Kirk's continued to fall. The legal consequences of Jasmine's receipts were far from over. The IRS investigation uncovered several financial violations, including tax evasion and fraudulent transfers. 2 of his companies were dissolved. Several business partners filed lawsuits against him. And though he avoided jail time through a hefty settlement, he lost millions and the trust of nearly everyone in the industry. Once a respected figure in Atlanta's entertainment scene, Kirk was now seen as a cautionary tale, a man who had everything and lost it all through arrogance, greed, and betrayal. Invitations to industry events dried up. Deals vanished before they even reached the negotiation table. And perhaps worst of all, the phone calls stopped coming. In interviews, people spoke about him in the past tense. He was a talented businessman. He was a key player. He was someone you could count on, but he wasn't anymore. And deep down, Kirk knew he had no one to blame but himself. One rainy afternoon, he sat alone in a nearly empty office, the last remnant of what used to be his empire. The walls that once displayed platinum records and award plaques were now bare. The staff that once filled the building was gone. The silence was deafening. On his desk sat a single envelope, divorce papers. All that remained was his signature. He stared at them for a long time, as if signing them would make everything real. Then, with a shaky breath, he picked up the pen and signed his name. Just like that, their marriage, their partnership, their story was over. Their story was over. Meanwhile, across town, Rashida was preparing for a new kind of event, a celebration. Not of an ending, but of everything she had overcome. It was the launch party for her new foundation, Rise Up, a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping women rebuild their lives after financial abuse, betrayal, and manipulation. The event was star-studded, glamorous, and deeply meaningful, a symbol of how far she had come. During her speech, Rashida looked out at the crowd, friends, family, fans, and women whose lives she had touched, and felt a surge of emotion. A year ago, she began, "I thought my life was over. I thought the betrayal I experienced would define me forever. But I stand here today not as a victim, but as proof that no matter how badly someone tries to break you, you can always rebuild. You can always rise." The crowd erupted into applause. Cameras flashed. Tears streamed down cheeks. And Rashida smiled. Not the forced smile she had worn for cameras in the past, but a genuine one, born from strength and self-love. Later that night, as the party wound down and the guests departed, Rashida stepped out onto the balcony overlooking the Atlanta skyline. The city was alive, buzzing with energy, and so was she. There were no lingering doubts, no painful memories weighing her down. The past was behind her, and the future was hers too, right? Her phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "I'm happy for you. I really am." Casey stared at the message for a moment, then deleted it without replying. There was nothing left to say. As the lights of Atlanta twinkled beneath her, Rashida took a deep breath and closed her eyes. The chapter with Kirk Frost was finally, truly over. No more lies. No more secrets. No more betrayal. And while Jasmine's receipts had ended Kirk's career forever, they had also done something else, something far more powerful. They had given Rashida the freedom to become everything she was always meant to be. She wasn't the woman standing in someone else's shadow anymore. She was the light. Some stories end with heartbreak. Others end with revenge. But this one, it ends with rebirth. Jasmine's decision to expose the truth didn't just end Kirk's career, it ended the cycle of lies, manipulation, and betrayal that had defined Rashida's life for far too long. The receipts that once threatened to destroy her turned into the very spark that set her free. Rashida's journey is more than just reality. TV drama, it's a powerful reminder that you can survive the worst and still rise higher than ever before. You can lose everything, the love, the trust, the dream, and still build something stronger from the ashes. And most importantly, betrayal is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of a new one. If you've ever been lied to, betrayed, or made to feel small, let this be your sign. You are not broken. You are not powerless. You are becoming, and like Rashida, one day you'll look back and thank the people who tried to break you, because they were the reason you learned how to stand taller. But the drama isn't over yet. In the world of love and hip-hop, Atlanta, every ending leads to another twist, new secrets, new betrayals, and shocking truths still waiting to be uncovered. So hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and stay locked in, because if you thought this was explosive, you haven't seen anything yet. The next chapter is coming, and it's going to change everything. Everything.